So we have done relative valuation. Okay. So now we move on to the other valuation method, which is the most important and more technically correct method to value a company. Okay. And this is called the intrinsic valuation, which is done through an approach which is called discounted cash flow technique. Okay. Why the intrinsic valuation or DCF valuation is better compared to relative valuation?
To know the present value of the company, because if we look at the future cash flow,
Huh?
we have to know the present value of the company. That's why we look at the future cash flows to basically know the intrinsic
Fine,
value.
that's okay, that's wonderful, that's very, very good. But why it is better than a relative valuation?
Because in that method we just look at relatively. We look at companies who are at par with us, but here we get the real value of the company.
Okay. Now, anybody who can refine this answer? Ansh, I would actually think that you can do a little bit better. Of course, she said it was okay. But why this method of intrinsic valuation is better compared to the DCF technique? Anyone else, please? I mean, you have been doing your CA, okay?
Because it takes a particular rate of cost which the investors expect, and calculate.
Yeah, Afreen?
The question.
Question is why the intrinsic valuation is better than the relative valuation.
So basically, I'm not sure about this, but I can try. So basically, intrinsic value is about, it shows today's what is the value of a company rather than the future or the potential one.
Okay.
So it says what is the today.
Just hold on. Okay, fine. So I think though I have explained this in my classes, so please listen to me once again. It's the most important thing in the life. Okay, suppose you are facing an interview and somebody asks you which method is better. Is it the relative valuation? Is it the DCF technique? So short, this can be the question. If you say that we have done valuation, the next question is going to ask you which is the better mechanism. Is it the relative valuation or is it the intrinsic valuation? Now, in a relative valuation, we look at the stock exchange and know the value. But stock exchanges are never correct. Either the stocks are overvalued or undervalued. So when we say this is the value, either if the market is very optimistic, okay, and if the market has moved quickly, about 10 to 20% in the last 1 month, then most of the stocks will be overvalued and you will say this should be the right value. Okay. So the stock exchanges never give the right value. The right value is arrived through a DCF technique, the intrinsic valuation. That means the real valuation of the company. Now, if I do my valuation of the company, I find Reliance should be 1600 rupees trading in the market, but actually it's trading only at 1400. So we say it's undervalued and the real value of Reliance is 1600 because my intrinsic valuation through my DCF approach, I found it should be 1600. Of course, it's another matter that DCF technique requires a lot of information, a lot of assumptions, and if 10 people carry out a valuation of Reliance, they will throw with different values. That's why when we look at trading view, we find there are about 40 analysts who are chasing Reliance. Some saying this should be the value, some saying, all are giving different value, and then we calculate the mean. Okay, fine, because the valuations can differ. Though this is the best method, but it requires a lot of kind of calculations. So now tell me, after what I have explained, कौन सा method अच्छा है, relative or intrinsic? हाँ? उसे क्यों देख रही है? अपना बता। Intrinsic valuation is better. Why? Because it gives you the real value, intrinsic value of the share, okay, and not the price which is prevailing on the stock exchange. It disregards the value. Sometimes the share value is 2000. It says that the real value should be only 1500. So you should not buy. You should sell if you are holding it. Otherwise, you should not even buy it. Okay? Is that okay? Is this clear, Ria? Which method is better?
Intrinsic.
Huh?
Intrinsic.
Because it gives you the real value, fair value, intrinsic value. Okay, so this is a very important difference between the two mechanisms. Okay, but relative valuation is very easy, very easy. You have done an exercise, you could all understand it. But DCF method is also very simple, but it requires a lot of working calculations, and it is a time consuming kind of a mechanism. So people don't want to do. Nowadays, the young population, they want ऐसे हो जाए काम बस, अगर चैट जीपीटी में गए और आंसर ढूंढ लिया, that kind of a mentality has come on us basically, and we don't want to work hard. So when you have to work hard and calculate DCF method, now if you ask 100 analysts, they will all calculate the valuation on the basis of relative valuation and try to justify their value because it's much easier. Okay, and then they will also calculate intrinsic valuation, and they will try to see that the both valuations come to the same level. So they are doing some mathematical jugglery and saying that look, we have done from both the methods and we are finding this should be the value. Okay, so that is not right. Okay, so I told you that now, as Yashika said, that what we do, we calculate the cash flows of the company, how much cash the company is going to generate. Fine. Suppose you want to buy an asset. अगर आपने कहीं पैसा लगाना है तो आप क्या देखते हो? What kind of a return you are going to get? Then only you are going to invest. When you make an investment decision in anything, whether you are buying a property, whether you are buying a company, whether you are buying anything, why you are buying? Because you want to earn some kind of a return. Okay, please listen to me. I can ask questions from anyone, particularly people at the back end. Okay, so when we buy an asset or any share, what is our expectation? Return. Is that how much return I am going to get? If I say that you will get 2% return, will you invest? If I say you will get 10% return, will you invest? Yes. If you say 20% return, you say very good, I will invest. Okay. So it is basically the return which you think that I am going to invest in an asset. Okay. Now how do we calculate that? How do we find what kind of a return I am going to get? So for that you try to calculate that how much, if you invest some money today, a lakh of rupees, how much you are going to get in the next 10-15 years as long as you are invested in that asset. So you are going to calculate how much cash I am going to generate, isn't it? कितना मुझे cash मिलेगा वो आप करोगे. Now that means you go into the company's profit loss account, you will find bottom line as net profit, isn't it? Now net profit is not cash, because if the company, assuming the company is selling everything in cash and spending everything in cash expenses, then the net profit will be equivalent to cash. अगर कंपनी सब कैश में माल बेचती है और कैश में खरीदती है, जो नेट प्रॉफिट होगा वो कैश ही होगा, एक्सेप्ट द डेप्रिसिएशन. डेप्रिसिएशन you just add to the net profit, will convert into cash. Okay, simple. So what you have to do is you have to first convert the net profit into cash. Okay, so that's one of the exercise that we'll do little later. So we'll try to calculate the cash flows of the company. Okay, and it is not the cash which the company has earned in past. It is the cash which the company is going to earn in future. If you are going to invest in an asset, you are interested in future cash flow or what the asset has earned in past to the previous owner. क्या important है, future cash or the historical cash? Future. अब आप पैसा लगाओगे तो आपको आगे कितना कैश मिलेगा वो important है, not what you have earned in past. So that means you have to calculate the future cash flows of the company. Okay, so that's a very difficult exercise, it's not very easy. Of course, on an Excel sheet you can always make some assumption and calculate that. My sales will go up by 10%, my expenses will go up by 5%, so what will be my net profit, how much I can cut into cash. So we can all do that jugglery and calculate the cash flow. Okay, but for a real life, for real companies, it is a much difficult job. So I'll give a project now. The next project which you are going to present would be, you will be calculating the cash flows of the company, of any company of your choice. Okay, and then arrive at how much cash it's going to generate and what should be the intrinsic value of that company. Okay, fine. It will be a group exercise. So you do one company, pick up one company like any company in Indian stock market and try to calculate what should be its intrinsic valuation. Fine. And AI will help you a lot here. Okay, fine. So you can put the balance sheet, profit loss account, annual report into AI and say how much cash flows the company is going to generate and how do I do it, so it will guide you. Okay, fine. So the jobs have become very simple and I always encourage using AI. Fine, but don't blindly rely on AI. So it will give you some kind of a help basically. Okay, now coming back to that, the cash flows which the company is going to generate, we have to calculate. Then what we are going to do is we are calculating the present value of the cash. वो जो कैश कंपनी कमाएगी उसका मैं आज की वैल्यू निकाल दूं. अगर सपोज द कंपनी इज गोइंग टू अर्न सम मनी इन फ्यूचर, द नेक्स्ट would be to calculate, if I calculate the present value of all the cash which the company is going to generate, what should be the present value? That present value is the value of the asset. That present value is the value of the asset, intrinsic value of the asset. जो आप निकालोगे प्रेजेंट वैल्यू वो ही कंपनी की इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू होगी. ओके, अगर उसको आप नंबर ऑफ शेयर से डिवाइड कर दो तो पर शेयर वैल्यूएशन आ जाएगी. ऐसे रिलायंस की निकाल सकते हो, किसी भी कंपनी की निकाल सकते हो. तो पहला काम क्या है, व्हाट यू हैव टू डू इज कैलकुलेट द फ्यूचर कैश फ्लोज, डिस्काउंट देम, कैलकुलेट द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू and that will be the value of the whole company divided by the total number of issued share capital. कितने शेयर हैं रिलायंस के और विप्रो के और whatever company, divide that, you will get the intrinsic value of the company. Very simple, isn't it? So that means two very important things. First, you have to find the cash flows. So I am not discussing today the cash flows, I am discussing the discounting rate. That means at what rate you are going to calculate the present value. अब वो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू जो है वो कैसे निकलेगी? Should you use 8%, 9%, 10%, 12%, 15%? What value you are going to use? Okay, fine. Is that okay? So we are trying to find the discount rate. Now the discount rate will depend upon, very important thing, the discount rate will depend upon how risky is the company, how less risky is the company. So I just give you an example here. Just the concept first and then we'll understand the discounting mechanism. How do we do it? Suppose there are two companies. Company A, what's your name? अंश. Company A जो है अंश की है, Company A अंश की है और Company B जो है याशिका की है. Okay, assume that. Okay, Ansh is doing a business and Yashika is doing a business. Now, Ansh is very risky. He is doing a business which is very risky. Okay, and Yashika is doing a business which is less risky. Now, if you have to invest your money, the first criteria would be that I am going to invest in Yashika's company because it is less risky. Okay, because Ansh is doing a very risky business. Okay, fine. So according to me, the discount rate should be higher in case of Ansh, and a discount rate, you know, I am going to calculate the future cash flows. Suppose the same business, they are doing the same business and coming out with the same kind of cash flows. Okay, fine. So let's understand that company A, which is owned by Ansh, and company B by company Y by cash flow by Yashika. Okay, that's why I given Y. So these are the cash flows, identical cash flows. So what I have done, I have projected the cash flows for the next 10 years. 10 साल के मैंने cash flow निकाल दिए दोनों कंपनी के. Okay, but ideally speaking, I have to do the cash flows forever. But I just for simplicity sake, I have done it for only 10 years. Now, company A, which is owned by Ansh, risky company. Company Y, which is owned by Yashika, is a less risky company. Now, that means I have to calculate the discount rate, which is nothing but the cost of equity. I'll explain you why. Suppose it is 25% in case. That means if I am going to, if his company is very risky, okay, I am going to invest only money if he gives me 25% return because the business is very risky. Now, if the business is less risky, like, the least risky asset is fixed deposit. How much return you get? 7%. Okay. And the risky assets are what? Shares. There you get 12%, 15%, 20%. So people choose, those people who are less risky, even with 7% they are happy because they say, we can't take any risk. Like my father-in-law who died at the age of 95, he had never invested anywhere than the fixed deposit. So he had huge amount of fixed deposits. When he died, he gave me all the fixed deposit to my wife and said, "Ye aapka hai." And he was, always counting, how much interest he is earning. So I used to always tell him कि ये आपको 6 या 7% आपको रिटर्न मिल रही है और अगर आप स्टॉक मार्केट में लगाते हो आपको 15% रिटर्न मिली. व्हाई यू आर डिस्ट्रॉइंग योर कैपिटल? ही सेज नो, आई एम नॉट इंटरेस्टेड बिकॉज शेयर मार्केट इज़ वेरी रिस्की. उनको लगता था शेयर मार्केट सट्टा बाजार है. द कॉमन मिथ दैट शेयर मार्केट इज़ लाइक अ स्पेकुलेटिव ट्रेड. इट्स नॉट. इफ यू आर इन्वेस्टिंग फॉर अ लॉन्ग टर्म, यू आर गोइंग टू मेक अ गुड अर्निंग्स. सो कंपनी, अगर मैं अब प्रेजेंट वैल्यू निकालता हूँ दोनों की, दोनों कंपनी की, अंश की भी और याशिका की। तो मैं क्या करूँगा, आई विल पुट माई कर्सर